So yeah,
Never
let's
have
see
you
what it
felt more
does for us.
redundant when machines take your job.
Everyone has a story, and we are so used to seeing the best of everyone, the confident, the accomplished, the ones who just seem to take up space so effortlessly. But how often do we get to hear about what it really took to get there?
In this series, we go beyond those polished moments. We talk to people about where they started, the real challenges they face, and what they had to clear out to make space for the life that they wanted. Join us as we uncover the truth behind the journey and celebrate every powerful, messy step it took to show up. Now, I met our guest today, Emmelie, early this year when I walked my slightly nervous butt into a networking event for women here in Glasgow. And within minutes, I was struck by her warmth, her creativity, and just this knack she has for making everyone feel at ease. Emmelie is the founder of Emmelie Coulson Design, and she's a branding powerhouse who's on a mission to help creative, value-driven women show up as their most authentic selves. Her work isn't just about logos or color palettes. It's about creating brands that connect and stand out and inspire trust. She's also a mama to two wee ones and is a card-carrying member of the Legends Married to Delicious Weirdos Called Steve Club, which I'm also in, and Kat was a member of. Full disclosure here. I am super excited to have Emmelie in the hot seat. I don't feel like, even though we've met a few times, I don't feel like I've scratched the surface of who she is, and I am dying to.
So, welcome, Emmelie. So we've heard Jess's intro. Wow. Now I'm also dying to know who you are. So, who are you?
Oh, wow. Thanks for that amazing intro. I do feel a bit like I need to step up my gear to meet that. Yeah, so like you said, Jess, I am a brand designer and illustrator and a mum, a wife, a daughter. And yeah, I'm originally from the Netherlands, where I grew up. I moved here when I met my husband, or now husband, and yeah, just kind of left everything behind in the Netherlands and moved here for love, and that's been 13 years now, I think. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I know how that feels. I did the same. I did the same from Australia. met someone, moved over here, left everything behind.
Yes.
And there's a mama sitting here going, 13 years. Yeah. That's and outside of all of that, who are you?
Well, that's a hard question, isn't it? Like, who am I? I think I am. Oh, it's so hard to. I feel to describe yourself in a way that isn't all the things that you do.
Yeah. Okay, think about it this way: if you were one of your clients and you were trying to get to the bits of them that is going to make up their brand, that isn't the what they do, that isn't the, what are those, how would you get that information or get that soul out of your clients?
I think for me, it's quite intuitive. I think I do feel people quite well, to figure out like, oh, this is what they show, what they, how they come across, how that makes me feel. So I think in that way, I am a warm person. I am a kind person. I'm always, I don't want to say people pleasing because I think that's a negative, like has a negative thing hanging on it. But I do want to make people feel like they can be themselves as well, that I don't have any judgment there. Yeah. Does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Because I'm so curious, because how does creating a brand that truly reflects you, and we're not talking about your clients now, but you, what did that teach you about self-expression and authenticity, and I guess taking up space?
I think really looking back at what we've been taught and what beliefs that we've been given, and kind of rethinking those things and going like, is that really true for me, or is that really true for the world and in a whole? But yeah, so trying to figure out like, what beliefs do I have that are truly me and that are truly, or like in case of branding, my clients, and what beliefs have I been taught that aren't true, or that I tell myself that aren't true as well.
So juicy. Can you give us for example? So what's a belief that you thought was true that you're now going, yeah.
Yeah. No. Right. This is something, and it's been a massive bit this year for me, where I have always been creative, but never really believed that I was an artist. Because to me, growing up, an artist was someone that created these like meaningful pieces that were abstract, and every brush stroke had their feelings poured into it. And whenever I was creating, it was just drawing things that I could see, or it wasn't any of that. And I didn't feel that way about creating things either. And I think as well, on top of that, growing up in the 90s, and I think there's still a little bit of that, but less so, the whole like poor artist like belief that like if you want to become an artist, you're probably going to become or like live a poor life. You're not going to make lots of money. So that's not a very safe path. Don't go that way. Just pick a job that pays the bills, that is safe.
And how did that feel, sort of believing that? I mean, obviously now you don't, but how did it feel when you did? I
think it always, I never had confidence in myself in that area of like, oh, whatever I create is good enough, or I can make money from that. And I think that has really like dragged on until two years ago, maybe, where I was like doing some bits of creative work so I started my business as a virtual assistant, and I was doing more creative work for my clients at that time. And I thought, oh, actually, I am better than the average person at this. People do struggle with this, and it comes easy to me. I can do this. I do have, there is a space for me in the artist world where I fit it. And then I think I heard someone talk about them being a commercial artist, which I never heard of before. Obviously knowing that it exists, but I never knew, I never heard of it in that kind of way. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's me. That is exactly the kind of things that I create and that I do and I love to do. So yeah, I think that really gave me the confidence or the feeling of, okay, I do fit in that. Even though we always talk, oh, you don't want to be stuck inside a box, or you don't want to fit in, I think it gives you the feeling of belonging, or that what you're doing is right.
I feel like if you've made the box and it's not constricting you. You've made the box and it's beautiful and it's shiny and it's yours.
And you've painted it and
yeah,
you've
there are colors all over it. And so it's not a box that's holding you in. It's like, look at that effing awesome box. That's Emily's box. Go, I want a box like that. It's exactly what you were saying before about the struggling artist thing. It really hit because especially growing up in the 90s, there was this, and I mean, I guess it was probably the same for everyone, but there was this whole idea, no matter what art it was, whether it was, music or visual arts or theatre or whatever, you kind of had to be, you couldn't sell out, right? You had to be, even if you look at Nirvana or whatever, you had to kind of be struggling and you had to be poor because you couldn't create art if you're making money off it. So I totally get that kind of story that was in the back of your head the whole time doing it. And I was scrolling through your website this morning, having a little gaze, and I noticed on there that there was something about, you mentioned there that for a while you were kind of afraid to show this love of boldness and bold colors and bold patterns. And I'm really interested to know what the turning point for that is when you decided to embrace that part of yourself. Was it aligned with realizing that there was this shiny painted box that could be yours? I'm really curious.
No, because that came so the commercial artist bit only came this year to me. So I'd been doing the branding before that already. And I don't know exactly, I think it was probably more of a slow process where I obviously did the branding for my virtual assistant business myself. And everything I looked at when it came to virtual assistant was all pink and soft and nice. And I was like, I'll just go a bit with that. I did have a couple of brighter colors in there, but I was just like, it just doesn't feel like me.
Yeah.
But I think up until that point, my clothes would always be quite dark and not very colorful. I've always loved them on other people, but I was like, oh, I don't know if that would I attract too much attention? Would I be too I'm not that kind of, I'm an introvert. So if I walk into a room and everyone would look at me, I would be like, oh my goodness. But then somewhere inside me, there was that bit of, I do want to wear the joyfully colored clothes that make me feel happy. And I think that kind of went hand in hand, where I could see so many women, especially, just having these slightly muted tones, and perfectly fine if that is your vibe, but I just felt like that's not me. I just want something that in a way does shout like, hi, here I am, even though that still makes me cringe a bit.
I find it so interesting, especially in the visual branding side of things, that it seems when you are taking that step to go out on your own and you're like, okay, I'm going to, whether it's part-time or whether you're going to go the whole hog and be like, I'm going to start my own business, I'm going to support myself. It's almost like that extra step to be really loud about it. And I feel that so often you look around and you see these really beautiful, polished photo, muted creams and pinks and the things you were talking about. And you kind of go, well, that's what everyone else is doing. I'll jump on board because it's pretty and it works. And again, if it is you, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you there, that I do feel that it is, it's part of that thing, like trying to keep voices small, where it's like, we'll just be muted. I'm here, but I'm a little bit quiet. And I reckon it's so cool that you are part of people kind of literally taking up their space, whether it's online or whatever, that you make women feel seen through their branding. And again, I'm curious about, with that journey that you've had of getting more comfortable taking up your own space and wearing your colors and being seen, has that, like, have you been able to see the way that you approach things with your clients change as you've gotten more comfortable taking up that space yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to what you were saying about how, yeah, when you start your business, it's such a scary thing to do, and to, especially if you've always been in an employee's role where you kind of just do what people tell you and you just go with the flow and there's not that much stress about it. And I think that maybe is where, for me, the change happened as well, is that I really wanted to make this work. And that for me was like, well, if I just sit behind that, like, I'll just sit here along with everyone else and be the same. And I knew that wasn't going to push me in front of those people. I would just be one of a big group. And then what makes me then stand out in that group? Why would people then pick me when there's like 10 other people that are exactly the same as me that they can pick from? And then it probably comes down to price, and then you're not really going to make much money, and then your business isn't going to work. So yeah, I think for me, that was the bit where I was like, okay, I think that gave me the confidence of like, well, if I really want to make this work, if I want to be seen, I have to show something different. I have to show something that feels more me, that is happy, that is joyful. I want to be that person in your feet that you go like, oh, this makes me happy today. And
well, certainly your website does that, because when Jess said we were interviewing you, I went and looked at your website, and I just looked and I went, wow, Jess, this is such a bold, vibrant, big website. I said, is this Emmelie? And she said, no, it's not. And yet it is. But no, it's not. And I'm like, okay. Because
and what I meant by that was that, and again, not knowing you very well, but it's not like you barrel into the room and be like, hello. But it's almost like this, but the energy's there, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like you without screaming and shouting.
Yeah. Mm. And I think that's like, yeah, exactly like you said. I do have that energy, but I'm not the person that like comes into the room and shouts, look at me, maybe in a way, but not like at everyone. I think for me, it's much more like I would be like that with maybe a smaller group of people, or, one-on-one. I do have that energy.
So what advice would you give to women who are struggling with that and know there's a part of them that just they're not expressing? What advice would you have to them?
That you are allowed to take up that space. I think that is something that I see so much, where people are, and I think especially women, we've been always like told that we need to, don't be so over the top, don't be so loud, don't be this, don't be that. And that just like, I think has...
Well, I remember, my mum used to say to us all the time, keep yourself nice.
Yeah. So did my mum.
It was a joke. Yeah.
But I think it does. it does pass on. And I mean, I don't think I was of the generation where the kids should be seen and not heard. But I think there was still that way of, keeping you small, and don't be too crazy and don't be too much. And I think that is still very much instilled in us. Yeah. And it's hard to step out of that, because that's the comfort zone. That's where you feel all right, even though you feel like maybe that's holding you back, but it's still nice and cozy there.
I think it's really convoluted and complicated, because we do wear a lot of hats, and just 3 that you wear are mother, wife, business owner, right? Now, each of those things can be a full-time role. So what does space for you, how do you carve out space for you that's not those things? Or do you carve out space for you that's not those things?
This is something that I really need to learn to do more. I think it's something as a mom, I think you quickly put yourself more and more in the background. Like, you'll care for everyone else. And I know that's, the wrong thing, but I actually started listening to a audiobook called Motherkind. And it's talking about how, like, the whole change of becoming a mother can actually take like up to 10 years of like, and it's the same, like it's called matrescence, but it's the same as like everyone goes through adolescence.
Yeah.
And it's such a massive change in yourself, and you have to kind of find yourself again in that. Like and the whole society is like, oh, you need to bounce back to your old self, but that old self is not there anymore. So you need
there is no old self.
No,
right? Exactly. You are transformed.
Yes, exactly. And that takes time. And I think there's so much pressure of, and I do feel that as well. I do want to grow my business. I do want to make more money, and I do really hate the whole like, oh, how to make 10K in a month posts. Like,
you're speaking my language, right? Yeah. That's abysmal. Yeah.
It gets me so wound up about things. But yeah, I think I do want to grow my business, but I've also made the decision that I wanted to have kids, and I want to be home with my kids when they're not at nursery or at school. And that means that I don't have the same amount of hours in a day as someone who either works full time or doesn't have kids or has more freedom in that. And I think that's really been a mind shift change for me, where it's okay.
I was just going to ask you, what would your definition of success be then? Because often it's outside of ourselves. The house, the car, the amount of money, the title, maybe the number of followers on Instagram, like whatever it is. What is success for you?
Yeah, I do quite often do a post about this on my Instagram, where like for me, it is having the freedom to be at the school gate every afternoon to pick up my kids, to not have to sit at a desk and work. For me, it's showing them that work can be fun, that you can have a creative career without being the artsy artist. It's for me, it's that's the reason why I started my business, that I had that freedom to be with the kids, and I think for myself as well, to do something that I like doing or that I love doing, to find that what brings me joy, and that I can do that every day.
How perfect.
If I there is the part obviously of I want to pay some of the bills. I do want to bring enough money in that I can pay the bills, but for me it's not it's not about the money necessarily. So yeah.
So with creativity, because I mean, your livelihood basically relies on you being creative and inspired. So how do you, find that creativity or inspiration on days when you're not feeling as sparkly as others or feeling as like inspired as other days?
I do believe it's partly like a muscle that you need to work. So I think it does come easier if you do it more often, and that it never runs out. So I do, and I think quite often so the way you work with clients, and I think this is like a question you asked like 15 minutes ago. Like I have a very extensive questionnaire that I ask my clients to fill in, and that's not just about like what colors they like or what fonts they are attracted to. It's like it is all about them and their business and why they started, who they love working with, what they want their clients or their audience to feel with their new branding. So what things do they want to put across?
I love that. That's a huge thing so with the work that Mum and I do, that how you want people to feel when they interact with your business is probably one of our biggest drivers, because that's like the superpower, right?
Yeah.
Being able to tap into emotions and nostalgia and feeling and memory and all that kind of cool subconscious stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So once they filled that in, I obviously read it and then we have a chat about it all as well. So I get a bit more of because sometimes things get lost when you write them down, or you forget something, or it doesn't come across the right way. So we have a chat, and so many times, or most times when I then chat with my clients, like things pop into my head and I go like, oh yeah, I could do this, or I could do that, and then it just kind of, in my head already starts forming a brand for them.
That's good, because you mentioned before that a lot of this is really intuitive for you as well. So do you feel like one of your superpowers, and I'm going to put words in your mouth here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but is making the people that you work with feel comfortable enough to let you kind of see who they are, so that you can put that into, you can make that visual for them?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why it's also so important to have that click or that connection with them, that if I feel they're not, like they're holding back a bit, that makes it harder for me then to create something where they go like, yes, this is truly me on the first go. Like sometimes we just have a couple of goes before we get there. And then I definitely think it's then that, where there is that it doesn't quite click, or they are holding back a bit by saying like, oh yeah, almost painting the perfect picture of what they want. And then that for me is then harder to translate.
So I get a sense, like I've been listening as you've been speaking, and I feel like there's been a lot of conflict that you've resolved for yourself. Like, I can't be bold and I can't be introverted. I'm not an artist. I'm not this. I'm not that. So if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, I find that so hard, because I think so many of these things just happen because of life. It just, that's the path that I was supposed to go on.
So say your younger self was a client who came to you. What would you say to her in order to help her find her brand?
I think that you would have to be a bit uncomfortable at first to I guess show your real self, or it's not, because it's not natural for most people, I think, to just go like, this is me. We're always putting up this mask, or, to take that off is scary. But if you want to feel, and I think for me, it's more like a calmness that then comes over me of like, okay, well, this is okay. This is how I am. And that makes me feel less stressed because I don't have to pretend to be someone else. So yeah, I think it's that. I think I used to always say to this answer, like, oh, be more confident. But I think the confident has always been, or not been there because of certain beliefs that I grew up with. And that has been something that I just had to, through different ways, had to figure out where that came from, like where that not having that confidence has come from, and just digging a bit deeper than just like, oh yeah, I just don't feel so like this is amazing, or
I know. I used to boast about being a chameleon, and that it doesn't matter where I go, I can fit in, I can do this, I can do that. The problem with that is that you lose who you are, you forget who you are. And now I'm sort of like, well, people are going to judge or not anyway. So I might as well be judged for who I am and then attract the right people into my life, rather than be judged for the mask I'm wearing and attract the wrong people into my life. It's like, this is it. You got me. And
hate me for who I really am, please.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right? And you're welcome. Yeah.
It is interesting about masks, though, because I find it is a bit of a dichotomy, especially when you are your brand. Like when you are your business, you are your brand. It is trying to find that line between how do I show up as my authentic self as the business owner without, letting all of my personal life seep in. I find that quite a fine dance, because you do want to be authentic, but also, like, I don't need my clients to know that I got 4 hours sleep and had too many wines last. I mean, I didn't, Mum. I didn't. But like,
you said you were working. Yeah.
But how do you dance that dance? How do you show up authentically in all aspects of your life while keeping, being able to keep things personal if need be?
Good question. Hard question. I think similar to what you said, like I try to show the bits that I think would help my clients or would help my audience, the things that I struggle with, that would help them. But then similar to you, I wouldn't be like, oh, I had another horrible night's sleep because the kids were up 6 times. And like, I almost find that, I don't know how to say it without being too harsh. Maybe a bit
distracting. Distracting. If it's not on brand, so distracting.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. I think I would always try to then turn that into something of like that other people can relate to without me being the victim in it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of sounding really like whiny about, oh my goodness, my life is so horrible, and if I have such a bad day, I would try then to maybe obviously not post it on that day either, and then maybe go back and say like, oh, actually this happened to me last week, but I've managed to get through it in this way, or to kind
talking
of
from the scar, not the wound.
Yes, that.
Yeah. It's I love it. It's I could talk about this for hours, and I find it so interesting. It is, it has been such a pleasure having you with us today. And it's been such a personal pleasure for me getting to know you better. And I know I've seen Mum's eyes, like when you started talking about your beliefs and things, I could see her eyes being like, oh, I've got follow-up questions. Oh, I want to know more. I'm getting my fingers in. I'm getting juicy. So what I would like you to share with our listeners, our viewers, is if they want to work with you, how do they find you? We'll put your links below, but what do you do? What work do you do with people?
Well, so they can obviously find me on my website that you have been promoting lovely, which is emmelicoulson.co.uk, but it's a funny spelling of Emily, so have a look at in the notes.
We'll link it below.
Yes. And so what normally happens is that someone gets in touch with me to say, like, I would like new branding. We would have a chat to see if that click is there, to see if that connection is there, that they feel like you are the right person for me to do this, to do my new branding. And then, yeah, they would book, or I would send them all the boring admin stuff to do first. But they would also get the questionnaire with all the million questions to get to know them better. And I think that is also such a good exercise for like a business owner to go through all that and really think about, okay, well, what do I really want my new branding to feel like? Because I think a lot of people don't really necessarily think about that. They think about like, oh, what colors do I like? Or what logos have I seen that I think would really work for me? So yeah, I think that is always a good exercise to kind of, I want to say, take stock, or to see where you're at and where you want to be going, what is important for you. Yeah, and then we would have that call where we discuss it all as well. And then I start designing, and they have usually about 3 rounds of revision. Sometimes needed if that like connection isn't quite there at the start. But quite often I have to say it's that people come and they go like with the first design, they go, oh, maybe can we tweak this or tweak that? And then yeah.
And do you find, I mean, you kind of hit on it before, but when through that process, it is them getting more comfortable with letting you see who they are and how they truly want people to feel?
Sorry, say that again?
Oh, so in that process, if you're going back and forward, is it that the person that you're working with is just getting a little bit more comfortable showing who they really are and letting you know how they want people to feel?
Yeah. And I think one of the main things in there as well is that from our first call, I always ask them to be really honest with me, because I cannot design something that they love if they don't tell me they hate something.
Yeah.
If they go like, oh yeah, that's nice, then I go on with that design and I just keep going on. If they tell me, oh no, that's really not me, that like I really hate this bit, or that color is absolutely horrible, then I can go, okay, we'll take that out and we'll change it. And sometimes it's hard for me to not take that personally, obviously, because I put time and effort into creating something. But I do also know that if they're not 100% happy with the end result, it's going to show in like how they then feel about their branding afterwards. And it has a knock-on effect on, and yeah, I think for me, it's really important that like I said, I want to lift these people up to be more present and to show how, because I work with so many amazing women that have set up businesses that are just incredible, and I want them to succeed with that. So yeah, that is probably the thing that drives me most, is that I just want to use my talents to help them be seen and show up and feel confident in doing that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I can honestly tell you that we have loved every second of chatting today. Thank you so much, Emmelie. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Been delicious. Thank you.